The lawyer's voice was just a dull buzz in the background. I couldn't make out the legal jargon, the words blurring together into a thick fog of nothing. Then I heard it, or rather, I didn't. My name was missing. Across the table, my aunt and uncle held up what they claimed was my father's last will, their faces masks of fake sympathy. They really thought their secret was safe, buried 6 feet under with the man who was my entire world. They smiled at me, thinking I wouldn't fight back. I was always the quiet one, wasn't I? But they had no idea what my father had really left me. It wasn't money. It was the truth in his own hand, and it was the perfect weapon. The air in the lawyer's office was stuffy, smelling of old books, and the greed that was suddenly thick between us. I was sinking into a plush leather chair that felt less like a seat and more like a throne of judgment. Across from me sat my Aunt Carol and Uncle Mark, with my cousin, Leo, wedged between them. He just stared at his hands like they held the secrets of the universe. The perfect picture of fake grief. The lawyer, a Mr. Abernathy I'd never seen before, cleared his throat. "And so," he finished, his voice totally flat, "the entire estate of the late Mr. Alastair Vance, including all properties, accounts, and personal effects, is to be transferred to his sister, Carol, and her husband, Mark Vance, to be held in trust for their son, Leo Vance." Silence. It was so loud it drowned out my own heartbeat. I hadn't been mentioned, not even once. It was like I, his only child, had just been erased. I looked at the lawyer's blank face, then at my aunt, who was dabbing at a perfectly dry eye with a handkerchief. "Well," she said, her voice way too cheerful, "Alastair was always so practical. He knew we'd take care of things. He knew Leo was the future." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. "That's not possible," I whispered, the words getting stuck in my throat. "My father, he would never." Uncle Mark leaned forward, patting his wife's hand. I saw the way his fingers tightened, a flash of triumph. "Now, Clara," he said, his voice dripping with condescending pity. "Grief can make us fuzzy. Your father wasn't himself these last few months. His mind, it was going. He signed this right before the end. He just wanted to make sure there were no complications." Complications, that's what I was to them. A complication in their perfect little heist. The will they held up was dated 3 weeks before he died. The signature was shaky, a frail imitation of his confident handwriting. It just looked wrong. It felt wrong. The witnesses were names I'd never heard of. "I don't believe you," I said, my voice getting a little stronger. "I want to see the original document. I want to talk to the witnesses." Abernathy slid it across the table. It felt cold. "This is a legally binding document, Miss Vance. Signed, notarized. The witnesses gave their statements. Everything is in order." Aunt Carol sniffled. "Oh, Clara, darling, don't make this ugly. It's what he wanted. He worried about you. You were always so flighty. He knew Mark and I could give you the stability you lacked." Flighty, that was her favorite dagger. She'd spent my whole life whispering that word to my father, a slow poison over years of family dinners. I had to get out of there. I stood up, my legs shaking. I couldn't breathe their lies for another second. As I turned to leave, Leo finally looked up at me. I swear I saw a flicker of shame in his eyes, maybe even guilt. But it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by the same coldness as his parents. "Don't worry, Clara," Aunt Carol called out as I walked away. "We'll make sure you have a place to stay, for a while anyway." Her charity felt worse than the theft. I walked out into the cold air, feeling like the entire world had tilted sideways. This wasn't just about money or the house I grew up in. It was about erasure. They were trying to rewrite my life, to sever the bond I had with my dad, to make him into someone who would abandon his only daughter. That night, surrounded by pictures of him, I stared at his smiling face. There we were on my 5th birthday, him laughing as he lifted me onto his shoulders. There we were at my college graduation, his eyes shining with pride. This was the father I knew. The man who taught me to stand up for myself. He would never, ever have cut me out. That wasn't just a feeling, it was a fact. And as I looked at that picture, grief hardened into a cold, sharp resolve. They handed me a lie. I was going to find the truth. They could bury his body, but they couldn't bury his love for me. And somewhere, he must have left me the proof. The first few weeks were just a downward spiral of dead ends. I hired a lawyer, Ms. Albright. She was kind, but she was a realist. She listened to my story and agreed it all smelled wrong. A last-minute will change, mystery witnesses, the beneficiaries getting everything. It was suspicious. "The problem, Clara," she told me, "is the burden of proof is on you. We need cold, hard evidence to challenge this thing in court. A gut feeling won't cut it." We tried everything. A handwriting analysis was inconclusive. The signature was shaky, but it was a good enough forgery. We tried to find the witnesses. One address led to an empty, weed-choked lot. The other person had apparently skipped town a week after signing, leaving no trace. It was all too clean, too calculated. Meanwhile, my aunt and uncle moved fast. They changed the locks on my dad's house, my home. They started selling off his things. Every call from Ms. Albright felt like another nail being hammered into the coffin of my father's true wishes. My savings were draining away into legal fees with absolutely nothing to show for it. I felt like I was screaming into a hurricane. My friends were great, but they didn't get it. To them, this was a legal problem. To me, it was like they were desecrating his grave. My own family was treating me like a ghost. One night, feeling completely hopeless, I was packing up some of Dad's things I had at my apartment. I picked up his old copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It still smelled faintly of him, that mix of old paper and pipe tobacco. And as I flipped through the pages, a memory hit me. My father wasn't just a reader, he was a writer. Every single night, he'd sit at his old oak desk and write in these leather-bound journals. He called it clearing the decks. "Paper listens, Clara," he always said. "It never interrupts and it never forgets." The journals. A jolt went through me, so strong it felt like electricity. But where were they? My heart sank. They had to be at the house in his study, and the people who wanted the truth to stay buried were cleaning out the clutter, as they called it. They were shredding his life's paperwork. It was a race against time. I had to get in there. The next day, I parked down the street from the house and just watched. My heart hammered against my ribs. I saw Uncle Mark loading boxes into his car. I waited for hours until the house went dark. I still had my old key to the back gate, a tiny mistake on their part. Sneaking through the garden I grew up and felt wrong. The roses Dad loved were already wilting. The kitchen window, the one with the broken latch he always meant to fix, clicked open. I hoisted myself inside, landing silently on the tile floor. The house felt wrong. It was sterile, like its soul had been ripped out. The photos were gone, the comfortable mess of my dad's life replaced by neat stacks of boxes. I crept to his study. The door was open. I froze. The room was half empty. The bookshelves were like skeletons. I frantically looked through what was left. No journals. I tore open the desk drawers. Nothing, just paper clips and old pens. Despair washed over me. They found them. They must have. They wouldn't be stupid enough to leave them behind. I sank into his big leather chair, the seat cold against my skin, and the tears I'd been holding back started to burn. It was over. I failed him. My hand was resting on the desk, on the wood worn smooth by years of his presence, and then another memory surfaced. I was 6, playing hide-and-seek. I'd hidden under the desk and found a tiny, almost invisible seam in the carved wood. I'd pushed it, and a little hidden door had clicked open. Dad had laughed when he found me, telling me it was our secret place for real treasures. Could it possibly still be there? My heart pounding, I dropped to my knees and reached into the dark space under the desk. My fingers fumbled around, tracing patterns I couldn't see. Just when I was about to give up, my thumb pressed a spot that gave way. Click. The sound was like a gunshot in the silent house. A small panel swung open. I reached inside and my hand closed around something wrapped in oilcloth. I pulled it out. It wasn't one journal. It was a stack of them. 5 black, leather-bound books held together with a rubber band, the most recent ones. He'd hidden them. He knew. He had left me the weapon. That was the moment everything changed. The moment I stopped being a victim and started being a threat. If you believe the truth is always worth fighting for, hit that like button and subscribe, because you're going to want to see how this ends. Back in my apartment, I unwrapped the oilcloth. The journals felt heavy, full of all the things he couldn't say out loud. I opened the first one. His handwriting was strong, clear. I started to read, and a story unfolded that was darker than I ever could have guessed. The first few entries were normal, his thoughts, his day, sweet mentions of me. And then the tone started to change. October 14th. Carol and Mark stopped by. Again. They hover like vultures, their concern so thin you can see right through it. They talk about my health in whispers as if I'm not even here. Carol keeps saying how overwhelmed Clara must be. I told her Clara calls me every day. She just smiled and said, "Of course, dear, whatever you remember." I felt my blood turn to ice. They were gaslighting him. About me. I kept reading, my anger building with every page. He wrote about how they helped manage his bills, how they took over his doctor's appointments, slowly cutting him off from the world. November 3rd. I feel like a prisoner in my own house. Mark is now advising me on my investments. He waves papers full of figures in my face, talking so fast, using jargon he knows I don't follow anymore. He says it's all to maximize my legacy for Clara. But when I ask for a simple explanation, he gets shifty. He thinks my mind is gone. He's wrong. It's my body failing me, not my brain. I see the greed in his eyes. Then came the real bombshell, a betrayal that went back years. November 29th. To talk with Leo. The boy has a conscience, unlike his parents. He let something slip about my old business partner, Richards, about the buyout 10 years ago. Carol and Mark convinced me Richards was cheating me, that they'd saved the company by forcing him out. According to a guilty-looking Leo, it was the other way around. They fed me lies, faked documents, and pushed out an honest man so Mark could get his hands on everything. They didn't save my company. They stole it. And I believed them. I had to put the journal down. My head was spinning. This was never just about my inheritance. This was about my father's entire life's work. They had been manipulating and isolating him long before he got sick. His illness was just their chance to make the final play. The last entries were the most chilling of all. December 12th. They brought a lawyer today, not mine. A man named Abernathy, a shark in a suit. They had a new will. They said it was just an update. I saw my Clara's name was gone. I refused to sign. Mark's face went cold. "You're confused, Alistair," he said. "You're not well." They left. I know they'll be back. I can't let them erase my daughter. December 15th. Weaker today, hard to write. They tried again with the will. I told them to get out. Carol cried her crocodile tears. I have to hide these. Clara will know something is wrong. She is smarter than they think, stronger than they think. She will find this. This is my real last testament. The truth is the only real thing I have to leave. Clara, if you are reading this, know that you were the light of my life. Never doubt that. Avenge me. Avenge the truth. That was the last thing he ever wrote. I just sat there, the journals spread out in front of me. I wasn't crying anymore. The grief had burned away, leaving behind an ice-cold rage. He hadn't just left me proof. He'd left me instructions. Avenge me. Avenge the truth. They hadn't just tried to steal my money. They'd tried to steal my father's love and poison my memory of him. They underestimated him. And they were about to find out just how badly they'd underestimated his daughter. A long, ugly court battle would have been their turf. They could spin more lies, bury the truth in legal paperwork. No, my father wanted the truth to come out. He wanted vengeance. And I was going to give it to him, not in a quiet courtroom, but in a theater of my own design. My plan was simple. I was going to use their own arrogance as the weapon. I called my Aunt Carol, forcing my voice to sound small and broken. "Aunt Carol," I whimpered, "you were right. I've been a mess. My lawyer says there's no case. I'm dropping it." I could practically hear the relief flood through the phone. "Oh, Clara, I'm so glad you're seeing sense," she cooed. "It's for the best. We're family." "I know," I said. "I was just hoping before you sell the house, could we have one last family dinner there? For closure, to say goodbye to the place. I'll even cook." She paused. I could hear the gears turning in her head, imagining her victory lap. "Why, what a wonderful idea, dear," she said finally. "A chance for us all to heal. We'll be there. Saturday at 7. The stage was set. I spent the next 2 days getting ready. I wasn't cooking. I was photocopying the most damning pages from my father's journals. I made 3 sets, each in a neat folder. Then I made one more call to Leo. "Leo, it's Clara," I said. "I need you at the house Saturday, and I need you to bring your mother's old laptop. The one she used for Grandpa's business 10 years ago. Tell her you need it for school, just do it. He hesitated, but the guilt I'd seen in his eyes was my leverage. He agreed. Saturday night, I walked into the house. They were already in the dining room, sipping wine. My aunt, my uncle, Leo. They looked so relaxed, so triumphant. "Clara, you look lovely," Aunt Carol said, pointing to the bare table. "Where's this dinner you promised?" "It's coming," I said calmly. "But first, I brought party favors." I walked to the head of the table, my father's seat, and placed the 3 folders down, one in front of Carol and Mark, one for Leo, one for me. "What's this?" Uncle Mark snapped. "I'm calling it The Last Will and Testament of Alistair Vance, the author's cut," I said. "I thought you'd like the unabridged version." They opened them. I watched their faces as the smug smiles melted away. Carol went white. A vein started throbbing in Mark's temple. "What is this garbage?" he blustered, throwing the folder down. "More of your hysterical fantasies." "Is it?" I asked, my voice ringing in the silent room. "Why don't we turn to the entry for November 29th, the part about his business partner, Mr. Richards?" I started reading my father's words aloud, my voice clear and strong. I read about their lies, their theft of his company. Leo just stared at the pages, his face ashen. He knew that part was true. Carol snatched the pages. He was a sick old man. He was delusional. He was sick, I agreed. But he wasn't delusional 10 years ago, was he? "Leo," I said, turning to my cousin. "The laptop." He hesitantly pushed it across the table. "I had the hard drive recovered," I said. "It's amazing what you can find in deleted files, like the original drafts of the letters you sent my father about his partner, and the emails between you two congratulating yourselves after you pushed him out. It's all right there." Mark actually lunged for the laptop, but froze. His face was a mask of pure panic. He was trapped. "And now for the grand finale," I said. "The entry from December 15th. I read my father's last words, his account of the forgery, his declaration of love for me, and his final command. "Avenge me, avenge the truth." A sob tore out of Aunt Carol's throat. It wasn't fake this time. It was the sound of absolute ruin. "This is inadmissible," Mark snarled. "The ramblings of a crazy old man." "You're right," I said. "It might be. But this diary, plus the forensic evidence from the laptop, plus the fact that the witnesses to your fake will mysteriously disappeared. I think Ms. Albright will find it all very compelling. In fact, she's waiting for my call tonight. Words like probate fraud, forgery, and elder abuse tend to lead to criminal charges." I just let those words hang in the air. I watched their whole world, built on lies, turn to dust right in front of them. The money, the house, their reputation gone. They weren't just caught. They were exposed, their true, ugly selves laid bare by the man they thought they'd silenced forever. This was the revenge he wanted. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a life's worth of lies crashing down. No more blustering from my uncle, no more crocodile tears from my aunt. Just the cold, hard truth sitting on the table between us. After that, everything happened fast. Faced with the journals and the laptop data, their lawyer told them to surrender. The forged will was thrown out, and my father's real will was honored. The house was mine. The inheritance was mine. But it was never about the money. My aunt and uncle had to sell their own home to pay back what they'd stolen from my father's business all those years ago. The story got out, and the community they'd worked so hard to impress turned its back on them. They moved away, disgraced, and disappeared. Leo was the only one who ever reached out. He sent me a letter a few months later, admitting to everything and saying he was trying to be a better man than his parents. I never wrote back. Some things can't be fixed. I sold the house. The good memories were tainted by the bad ones. With the money, I started a foundation in my father's name to provide legal aid to victims of elder financial abuse. It felt like the right way to honor him. Sometimes, late at night, I take out his journals. I don't read the dark parts anymore. I read the early entries, the ones filled with his wisdom and his love for me. That is my real inheritance. They tried to steal his money, but what they really lost was their own humanity. They thought his legacy was in a bank account, something they could forge. They were wrong. His real legacy was the truth. And in the end, my father's words were worth more than all the money in the world. This was my story. If you believe the truth should always come out, no matter how deep it's buried, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thank you for listening.